Heath, I'm going to come to you. Christian Pulisic got the start. That was nice to see. Leeds a bit self-destructive in their 5-2 loss to Brentford, but Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson both getting the starts again. Anthony Robinson gets hurt in their 2-1 loss to Spurs. That makes me a little bit nervous because we don't really have an adequate replacement at the left back spot as of right now for Anthony Robinson, or at least a natural left back that can back him up, that has been playing well. Sammy Vines, I guess, is an option. George Bello are the other two names, or the two names in total. Serginho Dest can play over there, but not ideal. Let's start with the Premier League. Any performances for you? Chris Richards didn't get to play against Newcastle for Crystal Palace. Hit me with your thoughts on any of these players in the Premier League.
Well, the good thing is that Christian Pulisic started, so that means he'll be benched for another 5 games where he gets to play for the next sort of month as he goes into the national team camp.
I thought he was solid. He was solid.
He was solid. I think again for me is the worry I have for what we had hoped Chris Richards would be come World Cup time with his move, finding a permanent move away from Hoffenheim, where he was actually playing regularly, to a much bigger and better environment where he's going to improve day in and day out. But he's still at an age where he needs to be playing games consistently. That I'm not saying this has any effect on his ability to make the roster for the World Cup, but certainly that sharpness, I think, is something that I'm concerned about, because Palace they're a good team, and both their center backs are young and steady, and now in their second season, and it seems like Patrick Vieira really rates them. So that's the one that I'm most worried about from the weekend in the Premier League. Although I do love the wild ride of Tyler Adams, Brendan Aronson, and especially our boy Jesse Marsch, and all the memes that have come out about him over the weekend from the way he talks to officials. It's been some really funny stuff, but I love it, man.
Yeah, he's definitely getting in there and ratcheting up the antics on the sideline. It feels purposeful in some ways for whatever reason. I'm sure he's got some method behind the madness. And they did get robbed. That should have been a penalty against Brentford, which I think would have made the game 2-2 if it was called at that point. And obviously they have to convert. But one worth getting upset about, and now the Premier League has come out at the officials in England to say this VAR stuff is a joke. We got to get this. It's just too many discrepancies and not enough consistency. Now, Charlie, as our resident number 9, let's talk a little Premier League. We don't really have a number 9 in there, so I don't even know why I let in with that. But we do have one in the championship, Josh Sargent. He scored again this week against Coventry. Wasn't playing the number 9 spot, was playing a little bit more off the shoulder of Timo Pukki, who did score first. But Sargent does get his goal. It's his 5th goal in his last 4 games. I think that dude, well, I already had my bold prediction. I think he's going to book his ticket to Qatar, but I think for sure he's going to get called into the September window. Then he's got to make the most of his time. I do also want to add that Greg Berhalter had a sit-down interview with our friend Andrew Wiebe at MLS Extra Time. That full interview will get dropped, I think, on Wednesday, so be on the lookout for that. But there's already been a clip that's come out that's saying that Greg will not be calling in 6 strikers to the September window because there's just 180 minutes for those guys to chop up. So
doesn't mean he won't bring 6 to a World Cup.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's a good point.
He's not bringing 6 to a World Cup.
Okay, but do you think Sargent? How are you feeling about Sargent and just what Greg said as well?
I'm feeling super optimistic about Josh Sargent. You know, you talk about being in the depth and being forgotten because he wasn't playing his position. So he came from this high start. Remember, he started the first game of World Cup qualifying on the road at El Salvador, right? To gone, just disappeared, right? He's had to work his way back up. Humbling experience. So I think from what I heard prior to, the World Cup qualifying campaign, he carried himself very highly, thought of himself very highly. And so this brings that perspective to all players that things can change in the matter of a second. Don't get too high on yourself. Don't get too low on yourself. So I think for him, going in with the right attitude and mentality this season with the championship has been awesome because he's just focusing on delivering, getting results, doing his job. Now playing as the 9, he showed, hey, don't forget about me. I have the quality. And we always knew he had quality, but putting it together, right? That's a whole nother thing. He's doing it in the championship. I think for certain he's earned a call up because Greg also knows he's had him in camp. He knows what to expect. He has international experience. And that's one thing that's holding Brendan Vasquez back. Out of all the possible targets playing at the 9, Vasquez is the only one who has yet to be called in. And that's going to hurt him.
Hey, Jimmy, real quick. Charlie is saying, don't be too high, too low, coming from a guy who was dancing and doing the stanky leg in the corner away from home at Azteca, you know?
That's different.
In front of
That's different.
in front of 100 million
That's
people,
different.
you know what I mean?
That's different because I was doing it. I was doing
Okay.
it. So
all right. That's fair.
If you
I'll
have,
give it to you.
love that.
It's one thing if you're not doing it and you carry yourself in a certain way and you're cocky but in a bad way.
Yeah.
Versus like
it's a small gray area. The difference between like riding high and doing it and not getting it done and feeling that same sort of almost validation or whatever the word is.
I'll also say I never made it about me. I always want to do it with the group.
You made it about an entire nation of Mexico.
Totally. Tell me I didn't try to do everything with the group. I was
that
never
is true.
Of course, that's true. That's true. Well, before we leave England, Austin Trusty is getting a lot of love from Birmingham City. He's been playing really well. I wanted to give him a shout out. So I'm curious to see if maybe he gets a call in September as well. He's been playing pretty solid, so I'll have to wait and see. Also, I just want to say that Brentford's coach, Thomas Frank, came out and said this about Brendan Aronson. Aronson what a player. He said, that's a top buy for Leeds. And I just think that he's a top player, which I thought was really high praise, especially given the fact that Brentford were kind of all over him at that point. And maybe Brendan didn't have his most impactful game, but still obviously made a huge impression on an opposing coach, which really speaks to his quality, which I think is very, very good. But keeping in that region of Europe, let's talk about Scotland, because it was the Old Firm between Celtic and Rangers at Celtic Park, and Celtic absolutely wiped the floor with Rangers 4-0. Not a good day at the office for James Sands and Malik Tillman and all of Rangers and the manager Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Now, Greg Berhalter was in the stands for that game. Heath, do you think that those two, and they all went to, and Cameron Carter-Vickers?
Oh, yeah, they're getting
on the other side, crushed
on the internet for going to dinner together.
They all went to dinner together, in the Celtic and Rangers players going to dinner with Greg, which I don't know why they're getting crushed. It makes
the first thing you could have done is go and ask DeMarcus Beasley, should I go to dinner with the other side of town in Scotland? And DeMarcus would tell you, I don't think that would be recommended, especially around an Old Firm. But I get it. But you know, fans again, fans, a lot
right?
of history there, you know?
That's a religion there.
It is. Yeah, you got to be kind of thoughtful about that, and a little unfortunate. It looks like they got that photo taken, from afar, so they clearly didn't know that was happening.
And they got clapped, and that probably would have gone over differently if it wasn't like a 4-0 thrashing. So
that too. Now, obviously, one game doesn't make or break a career, but when you have players like Malik Tillman and James Sands who are still in the bubble, Charlie, losing 4-0 in your biggest game of the season so far. I know that they did well against PSV and they showed well in those games, but this was a big one, and it was in a hostile environment, and they just didn't show up, and they didn't have the impact that we were hoping that both of those players would have.
I can shine some light on this situation because when I was playing in Sweden, just before the World Cup qualifier in Chicago against Honduras before the Confederations Cup, we were playing against Alejandro Bedoya's Uruguay team on the road, and Bob Bradley was in the stands. I was a little nervous. I knew I had to show out because, hey, I was playing well, but you have to impress. We lose the game. I elbowed this defender. I was lucky not to get a red card at the moment. They went and reviewed it. I got a red card retroactively, 5-game suspension, which I never served because I was sold to France. But I would say,
not too high, not too low, Jimmy.
Not too high, not too low.
No stanky leg after the red card, dude, or what?
It's not necessarily you having to. Bob Bradley just wanted to see me live, see how I approach the game, my runs, the way I thought. So it wasn't necessarily the result, because let's say James Sands and Malik Tillman, it wasn't necessarily their fault that they lost 4-0. Maybe there's a couple of mistakes here or there. He just wanted to see how they move, how they thought, how they press, because Greg obviously is a huge fan of the press and how you pressure, how do you react, how do you move off the ball. So he's watching all the little things, not necessarily the big picture in terms of, all right, what's the result, A, B. It's the little micro movements within the game.
Yeah, well, with regard to some of the Celtic goals, James Sands, and one in particular, I think it was the third goal for Celtic, could have done a little bit better, got caught ultimately ball watching, and the guy slots it in at the back post, his mark in particular. Those are the little things. Those are the obvious little things. But to your point, yes, there's obviously these other, in terms of how they're staying connected, how are they organizing, how are they moving, how is Malik Tillman pressuring? Where is he pressure? How's his energy, right? When he loses the
Yes.
ball, all those little things that you can't
The
really see when
reactions.
you're watching on television. So yes, I completely agree with you on that. And we'll see if those two guys get called in particular, and whether that performance worked against them, or if it confirmed some things that Greg already had, in mind, or maybe it didn't matter.